and namaste. So, welcome to episode number 50. Today, I thought we would have a little bit of play with the spine so that we use that fluidity of the spine as we explore posture. There's something very playful about the spine, especially when we, sort of wag the tail. And I thought we would just bring that into the practice as a point of reference for all the poses. We're going to have this play with the spine as a reference point as we move into postures. So we're celebrating our big 5-0. It just gives me inspiration to have a play with what we do in these classes. And so I've got plenty of ideas, obviously, but today we will just play with that spine as that reference point. So let's begin. So we're going to do something similar as we started on last week. But of course, if you have any trouble in your lower back, you are going to want to maybe keep the feet on the floor and the knees bent if there's trouble in that part. Or you can just do a little bit of it. Or maybe you can have the knees bent or soft when we do this. But we're going to go to that very first movement we did the other day of rocking the heels and just feeling where there's movement in the body. So there's that connection from the heel bones to the sit bones, the sacrum, which is the low part of the spine, into the shoulder blades into the head. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is maybe bring the heels up a little bit more and just start to see if you can roll a little bit where you press the heels and press up. So it's more of a wave than a rock. So that's the rock. Now you're going to want to wave through the body. So it's like you push through the heels, the knees bend, you push through the pelvis, the head tilts forward. So see if you can feel more of that spine. So we're going to use this wave a lot in class today. So you can just release that now and bring the knees bent and the feet on the floor, and then you can try a little bit of that wave from this position. See if you can find a little press into the pelvis through the head. It gives you a little bit of a spinal wave here. So then when we go into some abdominal things with the hands next to you or underneath the head, we're going to do it slightly different. You're going to bend the knees, straighten the legs, and when you come, bring the feet down to the floor, you'll just lift up the tail and then bring it back down. So we'll inhale the knees, bend through the heels, bend the knees to the chest. Press the feet up on the floor and lift that tail off. So we bend the knees in, bend up, bend the knees down, raise the feet on the floor, lift the tail up. We'll do one more like that. Bend the knees in, press through the heels, bend the knees in, feet on the floor, lift the tail up. And then you're going to cross the legs, and for I have the right foot in front of the left, and you're just going to see if you can just lift the tail up. It's a bit of abdominal work here in the lower abdominal. Just see if you can lift that tail off the floor, and it's kind of a little swing in the legs. If you want more intensity, you can bring the head up every time you lift. But you can always keep it just in the simple way. And then change your feet cross over, and do a few on the other side. If you want that intensity, lift the head up. And then just release that down and roll over to your side and come up to all four. So when we come to all four here, and we've done this in the past where we started to circle in the tailbone, but I want you to do these circles so that you're bringing in the whole spine so that you get a little bit of circle into the head and neck too. Now, depending on your body, you can keep it very small movement in the pelvis and just notice how that reflects up into the head. Or if you are able to do larger movements, you can really bring them circle around. And then make sure that you go on the other direction with that circle with the tail. Just allowing it to move up through the spine, into the head. So that the movement is going through that whole spine. And then slowly come back to neutral. Because one of the problems with the spine is we think of it as a column. And as soon as we think column, we think still and straight. But there's a lot of, and solidity, but there's a lot of mobility here. And we really want to find that spaciousness in the spine. So now, when we do cat and dog, we're going to just try to roll through the spine. We're not going to do the traditional. We're just going to start with the pelvis and let it just roll up. You might have a little bit more bend in the elbows. See if you can find that spinal roll forward. Don't worry what it looks like. It's more about what it feels like. Are you starting to feel more connection from that tail to the head? And then another nice thing is to wag the tail like a dog and let the head move with that. So then this way we're getting a little bit of side movement. And again, you can do this slowly, especially if you have anything going on the head and neck. Go quite slow and deliberate. Just to feel how moving that tail then alters the head and the neck. And then see if you can start in the spine and roll up like to upward facing dog. And then you bring that tail back and it helps pull it back. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can really start in the tail, let it move up through the rest of the back, or you can lead with the head. So here I'm leading with the head, and it brings the tail through, and here I'm again doing a little bit more of the roll through the spine as I come forward, and then come into upward dog. I initiate with the pelvis, get that roll. And then you can keep rolling back until you get into big toes together, knees wide. And what happens if you start to roll through the spine from that space, come all the way up, and then initiating with that tail, you can actually wiggle it and let it bring you back. So there's a few different ways you can try this, but what you're trying to find is that fluidity in the spine. And then place the forearms down, and if you have trouble with that, you can always put them on the side of the arm. And we're just gonna try to do this again into half plank. So we're gonna try to roll that spine until we come up into half plank, and then the knees down, and rolling that spine until we come back. Big toes together, knees wide. And again, you just put the arms down for half plank, and you can roll through the spine. Start to come forward. You can lengthen the legs into half plank. And then just drop the knees back, rolling through the pelvis and the spine. So you get two big toes together, knees one. And then bring the hands forward and interlock the fingers. So it's like you're doing a headstand preparation here. And then see if you can just start to roll the spine so your knees are bent. So you're rolling forward, you're finding that flow, and then slowly slow it down until you can press up, straighten the legs. Maybe the head's not on the floor, but it can be. And then you just start to roll, and then come back down into big toes together, knees wide. And then find the opposite crossover, so bring the hands together as you start to roll through the spine. Tuck the toes under, rolling through the spine until you get that straight. And then the knees roll through the spine until you come back into big toes together, knees wide. Come back up to all fours, and you might want the hands a little further forward. We'll do rolling through the spine and come up to downward dog. Again, if you're feeling dizzy or anything else, nauseous, you just might want to slow it down. So you start to roll a little bit through the spine. It can be quite gentle. And you start to tuck the toes under and do a little bit more of that rolling through the spine. And actually, when you start to come into downward dog, you can feel what happens when the tail presses one direction, what happens when it comes forward. And you can just do a little bit of a rocking action here. Until you can slow it down and then bring yourself into the downward facing dog. bend the knees and start to roll again. I mean, you can also think of it as like a rocking motion through the head, tailbone back. Head goes forward, tailbone back. And then come down into that big toes together, knees wide. Do one more downward dog like that. And again, you need to pay attention to how you're feeling as you do this. You can just start to kind of do a simple rocking with this. And slow it down when it works for you into that downward dog. And then walk the hands and the feet towards each other. And here you might want to put your hands on your legs, or you can let them hang and see what happens as you start to roll through the spine. Come up to standing, but there's still a little bit of movement, and it can be quite slow. And if you can keep that chin forward a little bit, it might help you find how that movement starts to bring everything into a line with each other until the head can settle on the top. Because often what happens is, you know, people from here might just lead with the head to come up to standing, and then we're missing feeling into parts of the back. So you can try that again, where you can just fold a little bit forward, letting that head go. And if it helps, you can put the hands on the thighs, and you can just start a little bit of rocking into that pelvis as it slowly begins to bring the spine up to standing, chins forward, and the head's the last thing to come up. Now, I'm aware that some people get dizzy or, you know, have inner ear issues. So just please be careful, and you can just make this a much slower movement. But now that we're standing, have the feet comfortably hip width apart, and then just do that little bit of wave. So that little spinal wave might show you where you feel there's a little bit of stiffness, or maybe where there's more movement, where there's less movement. And you can also put your hands on the hips just to help engage that movement. You can bring the hands on the rib cage, see how that gets you into movement. You can also then bring your hands underneath your head. You can support your head here, and then just be in that wave from there. But it's, I realize that, you know, I'm probably used to this kind of movement. Some of you may not be, so just be patient, and you can just do little bits of the movement, you know, just starting the pelvis, maybe just hold your hands on the head, keep more stability up here. Now, if you'd like to add a little bit more side motion to it, you can hold your head, and maybe a good image is like seaweed. So you can imagine that side motion as well, where the hips are moving, and it allows that head a little bit of action too. Because some people or a lot of us, don't realize that we have also this other mobility in the spine. It's not just this kind of forward and back, but there is more rotation here. Like belly dancers, right? And then just slowly, from that movement, find your way into standing. You may need to stand here for a few breaths just to feel all that movement. You might want to feel it settle. But just notice your breath, spine. Maybe you feel like there's more length in the tailbone, and you can imagine that you actually have a tail, like a lion, like a dog, that's lengthening down. And sometimes that really helps to stabilize the pelvis. So just notice what you feel. I don't want to put words into your experience. So now, just slowly bring the arms in front of you. This might help you stabilize this. And slowly do a little bit of rocking through the spine to come into powerful pose. So what happens as we approach this pose this way? Now go into that. Just the arms forward might just help with that. Give you a focus with the movement. And then if you want to raise the arms up, you can. Palms face each other or face forward. And then bring the arms down again and just do a little bit of rolling through the spine. Come back up to standing. So as I recommend, you can really just slow this movement down. It doesn't have to be lots of motion. So again, inhale those arms up shoulder height. And start the rock in the tail. And then come into powerful pose. Just notice how that feels. And bring the arms up if you want. They're not exactly overhead, they're actually a little bit forward. And then to come out, lower the arms. Just do a little bit of roll. Come up to stand. Bring the arms down. So I'm quite aware that some people get very nauseous from this. So just, you don't have sea legs if you know that you have nausea. You just want to slow it way down. Maybe you want to press into the feet. Maybe that'll help. So now we'll go into some more standing poses and see how this might influence our standing poses. So just bend at the knees a little bit and bring the feet out wide. And we will first just stabilize through the lower body. So I'll be mirror image. So the left foot toe to heel, right foot heel to toe. Now just start that little roll in the spine as you come down, finding where's that length? Can I get the length here? You might even want to put a hand on the sacrum and then maybe a hand on the head if that helps you. And then you can find that length here. Can you feel that length in the pose? If you feel like engaging the arms in the pose, you can bring the arms in the pose. And then release the arms and just try to slowly undulate the torso. Come back up to standing. And then we'll bring the feet parallel. Take a little pause there. So you can ground that. And then taking that right foot toe to heel, left foot heel to toe. And then again, if you need to have your hands on the sacrum and one on the head,
as you do a little bit of undulating movement, little spinal roll to find your way out to the side. And then if you feel like bringing the arms into the pose, you can. And then to come out of it again, if you want to use the hands, you've got the hands there to remind you. And it can just be very little movement. Coming to the feet wide again. And then just bring the feet into parallel. And then standing, just noticing. Like for me personally, I'm surprised at how much I feel more weighted into my tailbone. So it feels like, because I tend to get a little bit of that sway back, you know, especially us women who've had babies, because when we're pregnant, it often pulls the weight of the belly forward, so we get that arch in our our lumbar spine. And so this feels like it helps me really weight my tailbone. I'm really surprised. I didn't know that was going to be an effect. And you might feel it or maybe you don't. So anyway, that's what I'm noticing. So now again, bring the legs out wide. We'll go into Parsvakonasana this way. So we'll take that left foot toe to heel, right foot heel to toe. And then as you bend the front leg, you can start to undulate the spine. Again, if you want to use the hands, you can have the hands supporting you. And then you can bring the forearm down and just find the pose. And the left arm can do whatever feels right for you today. And then to come out of it and slowly undulate the spine. Back up. Bring those feet parallel. Have a little pause here. Have a little rest. And of course, using your eyes is going to help you in this. That's often what helps us not get dizzy. So now take the right foot toe to heel, left foot heel to toe. And then you're going to bend the thigh first and then start the undulation a little bit. And you can see mine is quite small. And then I'm going to bring that forearm here. And then you can decide arm up or up and over, whatever works for you today. And then slowly release the arms, undulate the spine a little bit. Come up with the legs wide. Since the legs are wide, see what happens, and just go to where it feels right for you in the legs. See what happens if you start to undulate the spine here. You can soften the legs. And see what happens if you start to go forward in this movement, but do it with just a little bit of movement. You don't have to do full undulations. Just feel that connection to the head and the tail. And then if you can bring the hands down, you can keep those knees bent, but you can still do a little bit of that undulation. And then if you're able to, from here, you can totally straighten that tail up, and you can bring the head down. To release that, walk the hands forward. You can maybe bring the feet closer in and just do a little bit of undulation between the head and the tail.
Start to bring the feet in. And then come back down again. We'll just do some simple twists just to feel what it's like if we undulated into a twist, sat in that twist. You need something to sit on, a blanket or a cushion or a block. You can sit on that, and we're going to take the legs out in front. You can modify this in whatever way works for you. But if you're able to, I'll sit sideways. Bring in that left leg. And of course, if you are on some height, you can, sit up like this. And then bring the right leg over the left leg. Make sure that the shin and the ankle and the foot are in line. You don't want to be twisting the foot. And so here's where, I'll just stay on the block since I'm here. Here's where you can hold that leg and just do a little bit of undulation in the spine as you start to bring it around. And again, depending on your body, you can bring the elbow on the outside, or you can just hold on to this leg. But just playing with that undulation to see if perhaps you can get just a little bit more movement all the way around. And then to come out of it, again, a little bit of undulation as you come around. And I'm feeling a little bit more movement. Now fold in the right leg and bring the left leg over. So I'm twisting this way so you can see me from both angles. So I'm holding onto that shin and getting a little bit of that undulation as I start to move the spine around. And I can stay here and just hold the arm here, or I can bring that elbow here. Continue that undulation until bring it to a close. And then we can undulate to come back into sitting. And then we'll go into a final pose. Whatever you need tonight or today, you can lay down in Shavasana. You can also have a chair with the legs on the chair, or you can put something under your pelvis to give you a little height there. Now as you settle into the pose, notice if you can actually feel your tailbone. Maybe you can only imagine it. Maybe you can feel a little bit of weightedness there. And then notice what's happening with your sacrum. Maybe your sacrum feels a little bit more spacious. Maybe it feels softer. Maybe it feels flatter. I don't know. I don't want to give you too many adjectives. I want you to just notice what you're feeling. And then see if you can notice the spine of your lumbar spine. It's right above your sacrum. There is a natural curve there. Maybe you can feel that curve.
What about that thoracic spine? That's the longest part of the spine. It goes behind your rib cage, up between your shoulder blades. See if you can feel those those parts of the spine. See if you can feel spaciousness between each of those vertebrae. And then see if you can feel into your cervical spine, which are the neck. They go up into the head and they support the balancing of the head on top. That also has a curve, a natural curve in it, and see if you can feel that curve. And there's spinal fluid called the cranial sacral fluid running between the top of the spine and the lower spine. Maybe you can't actually feel it, but maybe you can, or maybe you can just imagine fluid running up and down your spine. See if that can support your head and give a sense of lightness into the whole head, between the ears, top of the head, between the chin and the top of the head. Slowly begin to reawaken your body, bring a little bit of deeper breaths, movement into the fingers and toes. Perhaps you need a nice big stretch. In your own time, you can roll to your side and come up to sitting. Thank you for joining episode number 50, focusing on the fluidness of your spine to support you in your yoga practice. Namaste and have a beautiful day.